Hey, everybody. You know, doing a project plan for a brand new website is actually not that hard because you can use the same thing over and over and modify it slightly. But doing a project plan and executing a project for a website redesign can be really different. That's what we're going to talk about today in this episode of Can We Talk About Your WordPress Projects? I'm going to tell you a little bit about the biggest differences in a redesign project from a regular web design project from scratch and what I'm doing to address those things in my current project. If you're watching live, if you could type in a comment, say hello, tell me where you're from. That's helpful to know who's here. If you haven't already given StreamYard permission, if you're watching inside the Facebook group, there's a link at the top in the description where you can do that so I can see who is commenting. If you're watching on the Facebook page, you don't have to do that. So what's different about a website redesign project? Well, it depends on what that redesign project entails. Is it a refresh with no new content? That's probably the easiest one. Is it a refresh with some new content, or is it adding new functionality or adding a lot of new content? Those are the three biggest things that have an impact on how hard this is or how detailed it is. Project management is project management. It works the same for all projects, regardless of industry, regardless of what you're working on. There's some things that are just constant. And that is when it comes to website design, you need to focus on the business objectives over design. You also need to have something in place to make sure you get paid for all the consulting work you do, that you get paid for all the discovery. You also need to invest heavily in planning, a lot of planning, before you start the design and the development. But there's a little bit of a difference there when it comes to redesign, because sometimes you have to mock things up to make sure it aligns with what the client had in mind. I'll get into a little bit more about that in a minute. Content first is still a big, giant deal. That really needs to happen regardless of which types of these projects you're doing. Then, of course, the way to control scope creep, change control. You have to have that good change control process and invoke it without exception every single time. So what's different about most redesign projects is you're likely going to have multiple stakeholders, because if your customer's been using this website for a while and they have a staff, this may not be true if it's just a single mom and pops or a couple or just somebody working on their own. It might not be the case, but typically if a website's been out there for a while and it's an operational part of the business, then there's going to be more than one stakeholder. And by stakeholder, I don't mean decision maker. By stakeholder, I mean those people who this change is going to have an impact on their job. For example, in my case, because I'm adding e-commerce functionality to an existing website, and they have a whole bunch of processes in place and a store POS system that we're not going to be able to link them together, but we need to develop a process that they can keep that inventory up to date between the two systems. There's a lot of people impacted by that. There's the people in the merchandising area. There's people in the marketing area. There are the people on the sales floor, although they're not getting involved in this project. We need to consider them as stakeholders because they get paid commission on stuff they sell out of the store. So if we're implementing an e-commerce solution, that has an impact on them, and someone needs to address that with them. It's my job to remind the client, you're going to need to tell these people or put a process in place by which everybody gets a little piece of the pie if it was sold somewhere else other than the sales floor. What else? You have to do a lot of research into the existing website. In my case, they had a catalog site with about 1,600 products. Some of those products are one-of-a-kind market samples, and when they're sold, they're gone. Some of those products are ones they order over and over. I had to really do quite a bit of research into the existing website, from not only from that perspective, but also because I had to figure out how the previous developer built the website, because they did use a custom developed theme and advanced custom fields. They developed a lot of things just for this customer that the customer no longer uses in the way it was developed. So you can see where this became not just a website redesign project, but more of a business process consulting project. And I'll tell you, when you have those kinds of projects, they're the most lucrative because these folks really need help. It's not just adding this functionality to the website, but they really need help in streamlining their processes going forward because they right now do a lot of duplicate work that's just not necessary. I'm helping them with all of that. In this case, when we talk about deliverables, we've got our standard deliverables, our functional requirements, technical requirements, layout, although we're not changing the layout that much, design, all of those sorts of things we pull together into the statement of work. But there's another document that has to be done, the business process analysis document. I'm going to show you in a minute what the table of contents looks like for that. For those of you who are in the advanced training, I'm working on right now for the premium students in the academy, a step-by-step sort of case study, but more from a project management perspective, not of look what I did for this client, but more from a look how I had to modify things to do this redesign project. So you can get a really good inside look at how you can apply these project management principles no matter what the project is. So that business process analysis document is where you break down the as-is processes, and you have to have a full understanding of that. So it takes a lot more discovery than you would probably need for a regular website. I've been having regular meetings, go off, and then I analyze things and try to figure things out. For example, one thing that I'm having to figure out is mapping this POS system, what they can export as an XML file, and mapping how that matches to the WooCommerce import schema. It's a bear, but I love solving these kinds of problems. It's like putting a puzzle together. Once you're done, it's a wonderful feeling. I'm very close to being done with that part. That document should be going to the client this week for approval. But we haven't planned out the whole project yet. We're a month into this project and I don't even have a full project plan yet. And the reason is I can't really do that till we have this business process analysis nailed down and we've agreed on what the new process or processes are going to be surrounding the website and the e-commerce functionality. Until I know what they want in terms of that, I can't really plan out the rest of the project. And things are popping up we didn't know were requirements. One of the last sections of this document is, here are all my recommendations, and here are the ones that are new requirements. Because remember, we spelled out a list of requirements in the proposal. We gave them a range. I already knew when we did it, it was going to be way bigger than what I quoted, but they were fine with my range, but it is going to exceed that range. I have every expectation they will still continue with the project anyway and not cancel because they're finding out these little glitches here and there that have been bothering them for a while are going to be solved. So we're completing the project plan in chunks. Once we finish the business process analysis and they say, yeah, that's all right, that's the way to go, I'll be able to get quite a bit of the project plan done with some target dates. We have a target date of June 1st to at least get the new filtering and sorting of the products done, even if we don't enable the purchasing part of WooCommerce. It is possible to install that as just a catalog like it is now, and we can add the buying functionality later. Okay, let's talk about acceptance. Let me show you the table of contents. I'm gonna move this document over here and share my screen. Excellent, I'll make this bigger so you can see it. It's just a screenshot of the table of contents. Those of you who are in the premium program of the Academy are gonna get a template for this, but I did wanna go over this with everybody so you can see how this matters to what the rest of the project is doing. First, we talk about the purpose. What is the purpose of the document? The purpose is to spell out the as-is process, pinpoint the glitches and the gotchas and the problems, then develop a process to replace or add to it or fix it. We've got our as-is process and our to-be process. That's what this document is for, to get the client to approve the to-be process, because then I know which pieces of WooCommerce I need to implement, which pieces I'm going to need to get some custom development help with, and that sort of thing. The next one is the current product entry process. then my analysis regarding that process, and then my recommendations for the process. So process. After that is another section. This is a piece we didn't even talk about during the proposal, is that the marketing company, who is very close to this company in a personal way, comes in and updates the website for promotions that change about once a month. She's got a certain way of doing that. So we had to examine that and see if any needed to change and how it needed to change based on the other recommendations I'm making about the website. So it's really complicated. Then again, the analysis regarding that and the recommendations regarding that, I went back and listed the actual requirements that were in the proposal. I'm reminding the client, remember, this is all about educating the client and also setting expectations for the next step. I've listed those requirements that were in the proposal that talked about increased efficiency. It talked about it at a very high level, and I fully articulated what the client wanted, but it wasn't exactly what the client wanted, and it's gotten much bigger. We're going to make sure we get paid for that. After I showed, here's what the initial requirements were, 2 bullet points. Here are the new requirements for implementing all the recommendations in this document. And so there's like about 4 or 5 more requirements, but they're several sentences each because they're complicated. I have 2 appendices in this document because I didn't want to clutter up all my analysis part with these giant graphs, mapping charts and stuff like that. So I put those in the end. And when I go over this with the client, because of course I'm going to do a walkthrough so they understand everything about this. There are bits and pieces of this I'm not going to review with the client. They're capable of reading it on their own. But then I will highlight certain things throughout so they'll understand my reasoning behind the recommendations I'm making. We've got the POS system and the WooCommerce export and import schema. I've mapped all those things and I've shown where we have questions. I don't have to have those figured out when I do the business process assessment. I just have to be able to show them, here's what I've mapped out. Here are areas of concern that we're going to need to address. So I can wrap that into the project plan when I do it for the next steps. Then the big one that we will go over mostly as I review this with the client is the proposed new process, which is the to-be process, to make sure they don't have any problems. They've been doing business for about 50 years at this store. They've been doing business a certain way. The owner is roughly my age, and she has been a little resistant to change in the past, according to what the other staff is telling me. But she is on board with this. She is really anxious to get this done. She's really seeing that she can't go any longer without having some sort of e-commerce functionality. For her, it was really a big step. The final thing in this document is their acceptance statement, that they've accepted this document. I wanted to show you the wording because you can use that in some of your documents to, here's where we are, here's what you're agreeing to in this document, and here's where we're going. So let me show you what that statement actually looks like. I think that's in the previous thing here, right? Okay, so the first thing is they're accepting that this document accurately reflects the new business processes to be created and implemented as part of the website redesign project, and that the agreed upon method for managing inventory between the website and the existing POS system, it also reflects that. And then there's a statement they're signing that says, we understand that certain new requirements were agreed upon in this document and may impact the updated time and cost estimate in the final statement of work. Now, of course, they agreed to all of that. They knew that would happen when they signed the proposal and the master services agreement and all of that. But this is just another reminder. And so for each document I create that has new requirements in it, I'm going to highlight those new requirements and make them sign a statement that they understand these are new requirements and it's likely going to impact that final time and cost estimate. Now, we might not go over, but I can already see that it's probably going to go over. That's how I do the acceptance. That's just a little snapshot of how you need to modify things. Let me unshare. So that's just kind of like a small, brief snapshot of how a redesign project can be really different than a new website. You have to keep your eye on all of those project management things that really, really matter. But at the same time, you have to be willing to, I don't want to say pivot. It's not really pivot, but it's just to be a little bit fluid with your overall project management stuff and add in new deliverables if that's what your client needs. And I'm telling you guys, the way to charge more for website design projects is to be more than a website builder, to be more than a button pusher, and help these clients with consulting, help them with figuring out what goes along with this website redesign. This is a little bit shorter than usual today. I don't have a guest to talk to. I hope you got some value out of this. You'll be hearing more about website redesign going forward, just because that's what I'm working on. No, but it's something I've been needing to address with everyone for a while. We keep talking about new websites, but there's more and more and more people wanting to update their websites. And this website I'm working on now hasn't been updated since 2016. If anybody's let a website go that long without updating it, they probably need to look into it. I think experts agree most websites need a refresh or a redesign every 5 to 6 years. That's another way to touch base with some of your older clients and say, when things start looking out of date, and this is one way I got them to agree to change the design for this website. The initial requirement was they just wanted to leave the look and feel exactly the same. All they wanted to do was add e-commerce, but some of their stuff is really out of date. It looks very dated. When something looks dated like that, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? They're cheap. They don't want to update their website. And it's not just us. It's not just website professionals that think that. When I land on a website that's not mobile responsive, I think, well, these people have no idea what they're doing in terms of marketing. So should I really trust them? Now, if it's something I really want, I'll still go to the website and I'll still maybe buy the product from them, but it does send a message. So that might be a way to get your foot in the door with some of your former clients or even new clients who absolutely need a new website or need a website refresh. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you're watching the replay, type replay in the chat, please. This Friday, we will carry on this discussion a little bit more about redesign projects and what are the first steps you take when you start a redesign project. How do you jump in the first thing? What's the first few things you do? I will see you Friday and hopefully again on Monday. Until then, remember, stay productive, stay strong, and never stop learning. Thanks for watching, guys.